out before.
Yeah, certainly. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I do have some pictures here. I don't see where we have a place to put them all. So there is signs that the state of New Hampshire requires when you have a shared road access. So on each side of the road entering and leaving, there has to be a sign that says the shared road begins, and then the opposite side, so the leaving traffic can see that it says the shared road ends. So it's posted everywhere. And then through that, and I think so far there's about 22 of those signs that are required that we need to purchase. From there, also at those intersections where the shared road ends, there's signs that say the end of permitted use, right? So we have that piece. Then we have other access areas like the tannery where the rail trail is. We have the rail bed that crosses the roads. All those things where there cannot be any wheeled vehicles like ATVs or motorcycles, and we have to then also sign those to make sure that people stay out of those as well, right? Then there's speed limit signs. So currently the road, Old Spofford Road at least, is to 25 miles an hour. So we're proposing either 25 or 20, depending on, you know, what we see. And that way the machines are moving with the traffic as well. So that's an important piece of it as well. So that's, so far that's our proposal.
Okay.
That's it. In a nutshell, that's the end of the prospect. One thing I would add is that our membership group met the other night, and what we spoke about is that there was some concerns about how much time in mud season and all the stuff that goes on the road. You know, trails close for ATVs. The park is always open because it's an ATV, it's a wheeled vehicle park. So the park doesn't close until mud season. But on roads, when there's the first plowable snow, or December 15th, because that's when snowmobile season is supposed to start, right? That's when the roads are closed to ATV traffic, and they would remain closed until May 23rd is when the ATV season opens. So that would be, so there would be no traffic from, say, worst case, December 15th to May 23rd. So we're just looking at the summer hours. Mud season's over, right? So that's the biggest thing that we want to just make sure that you guys understood, right? So there was some concern about dust. In addition to that, New Hampshire Trails Bureau does grant aid, and as an organization within the community, we're allowed as a club to submit grant aid requests, and we can purchase calcium chloride to help keep do some dust control. We know that the town does dust control now. There isn't a big budget for that, but we can help supplement some of that budget in those areas where there might be some control, where we need better control. Also, we can also have signage, and there is signage available for us that says no dust zones, slow zones, quiet zones, right? And I know noise was another factor in this, is that machines cannot be modified. It's against the law to modify your exhaust, right? So they meet all the federal standards for noise control, right? Because you can't be modified, right? And you can't be speeding. There's a speed limit. Just like a car or a vehicle or truck, you can't be speeding. It doesn't matter what road you're on, you can't be speeding. So it's just a matter of policing those things and keeping, being out there and being vigilant and being present to make sure that doesn't happen. So those were some of the concerns that we did want to cover. So there was some questions about parking lots. There's an old Pisgah State parking lot way at the other end, past the John Hill Road. That parking lot was closed many years ago, and the biggest reason that parking lot was closed was because of snowmobile traffic, trucks and trailers trying to make the hill, right, in the winter. So that's why that was closed. So there is no intent to open anything over there, because we can't open anything in the park other than what the park says. So that isn't anything we're doing. And there was some concerns regarding trash and mattresses and things like that. It just seems difficult for us to fathom the fact that any ATV rider would be hauling a mattress around to dump on the side of the road or throw the things. Most operators are very conscious of their trash. It's a carry-in, carry-out policy. And, then what we do, and we do it in the park as a club and an organization, we ride the park picking up stuff too, because people still throw stuff out. So we're out there doing that as well, and we would do that here as well on this. So we certainly ask the select board to consider this as an opportunity to have some visitors come to town, to spend some money in town, certainly coming down to our businesses and growing our businesses, so thank you.
I,
Do you have a question and answer period, or can we ask questions as we go along?
there'll be questions in a couple minutes, yeah. I'll open it to the public in a couple minutes.
Thank you.
I was actually gonna ask for Chief Tillett to come up next. I had requested the police and Fish and Game to be here tonight, but I don't see Fish and Game at all.
I spoke to Fish and Game several times, several days ago. Lieutenant Boudreaux's typical words when this is going on before towns is he basically stands up and says that if the town passes this, enforcement falls on the local police department. Fish and Game has no enforcement on the town roads. That would be us. That's from the Fish and Game perspective.
Okay.
So I'll be happy to answer any questions. I've done a little bit of research, but
You're gonna have to have another officer, Mike, and more equipment to enforce this?
it's just like anything else. If, for example, Mrs. Smith from Richmond Road calls and says cars are speeding, we focus on that for a little while as much as we can, time permitting, call volume permitting. 2 or 3 times of her calling, she might get a little upset. We might pull people over. It might fix a problem. It might not. I do not know what type of enforcement activity, how much it would increase. If this, was it 4.5 miles, Dean? About 4? I don't know. I could expect it to increase. Fish and Game, again, Lieutenant Boudreaux said typically when this happens, you can expect the out-of-staters, that traffic to double whatever, the ATV club is doing, because you're going to get a lot more people here coming up from Mass, from Connecticut, and riding.
Do you have any concerns, or does the police department have any concerns that they'd like to address?
I won't give you, my personal opinion is I think it would be great, but I think the problem that we would encounter is if it's just this club and just these riders, probably wouldn't have any issues. It's not these folks that I'm worried about. It's the kids on the modified machines. It's the speeds, because I don't care who you are. It's hard to go 25 miles an hour on Howard Street in a car. People don't obey the speed limits now for the most part. Everybody goes a little over the speed limit. Enforcement would be hard. If this passes, my idea of what I would put out to my people is we're going to hammer this 4.5 miles of roadway as much as we can, and just have a zero tolerance policy as we get going on it, and write tickets and hit people in the pocketbook, because that changes people's driving attitudes is when it costs them money.
But it's not the locals that we're really worried about. It's the people from Mass that have no place to ride down there that come up here.
Correct.
It's like Sunday, I went down to Hinsdale, come back. 2 motorcycles come out of the power line down there by the state shed, ride up on 19 to the park. So I kind of hung around to see where they were from. They're from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
So it's not the locals that are doing this. It's, I'm afraid of it. It's not.
Yeah, if it was just Dean, and I'm not sure what the membership is in the club, but if it was just if it was just a local small amount of people, I don't think we'd have that big of an issue. I can't predict what's going to happen. All it's going to take is one bad accident. If folks in the audience or on the board that have been to ATV or OHRV accidents before, they're not pretty. I don't want that to happen. It's my job to keep the roads safe in town. So yeah, it's going to be more work, because it does fall on the police department to enforce it.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Does anybody from the board have any other questions for Dean?
Yeah, Dean, I have a couple of questions. One is, when you came before us here a month or so ago, one of your main objectives was able to come down and use the off-street parking here
Yeah.
and to go to Mr. Mike's and fuel and whatnot.
Not to drive over.
Right, no, yeah. But that being said, as of this morning anyways, I spoke to the management at Mr. Mike's. They're hoping within a year to be down here on the corner with Dunkin' Donuts. So we're probably not even gonna have a store here.
That's fine.
But-
We will have the mini store here,
All right,
right? The mini store's here.
I was just thinking of the gas. Yeah.
And, well, first off, the park there's only just about 20 miles of open riding in the park. That's just one ways, like to Fulham Pond and back, Broadbrook Road back, Chesterfield Road, to the ranger station, up to the reservoir and back, right? There's only 20 miles. This is, so you think about a machine that has, 12-gallon fuel tank, 8, 9, 10, 12. They can ride all day on that tank. But they're not coming here to get fuel, right? They're coming down to get something to drink. And really, just their primary goal isn't to ride the road, right? It's to be up and ride in the park, because that's what they're there. They're to ride their machine in the park. It's the opportunity to say if they want something to drink, they want to come down and get something to eat, they can come down to the restaurants, they can come down to the mini mart, get something to drink, right? It isn't about, this ain't a corridor in a sense to where, that's not what they're not there, these machines aren't there to ride the roads, asphalts, and, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah. So if that kind of answers your question.
It does. And the other question that I had, and I guess it would go back to Chief, would be, you said there's 4.5 miles.
I believe that's what it works out.
I know Rockingham has something similar to this. Berlin area, up north,
Hundreds and hundreds of miles.
miles, right. One thing, I was able to reach out and talk to some of the folks over in those areas, and one thing that they had, Mike, and I don't know if you thought about this, and I agree with you and Channy also. I don't think anyone has a problem with our local club, because they're going to police themselves because they'd like to have this. But that being said, is one problem that they were having was riders would come out at a different designated area and say, oh, I'm only 2 miles from where I'm supposed to be, so I can go right down this road. And
I understand, Jack.
Yeah.
I mean, we got locals that do that.
well, I guess this is why I was asking Mike about it, what his thoughts were.
One thing that Fish and Game said, if you're going to do this, and you recommend, I don't know how many signs you just said a minute ago, double.
Oh,
They said the towns that have issues is where they do not have a good plan.
you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And you gotta double the signage to make it to where it's really foolproof, where we can enforce it. I didn't see the sign on the street, I'm not seeing it.
Exactly right. Absolutely, Mike. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And that's the thing. So it's clear. And that's our goal. We have to be clear.
Yeah.
And we said that the other night when we were here. We will work with Mike to make sure that we have everything and that they're clear on where it's supposed to be before we pull the trigger. We say, yeah, but then on such and such under conditions, right? So, and one other thing I wanted to add is that Fish and Game, New Hampshire Fish and Game offers grant aid, or grants actually, I think it is, Mike, to help police these types of roads. And I think Winchester has been a recipient of that in the past.
Right, we've been a recipient every year until this year, and this year, 12 out of 20 departments were awarded funding. For some reason, this year we didn't get some money.
So it still is
We
available.
can still apply for it.
Right? And you were getting it before we were there.
Yeah, Mike used it for the park, yeah.
But you was patrolling the park with that money, right, Mike? I mean, you had it.
Yes, we are. And we can still patrol on our ATV. It's just a matter of scheduling and having people do that.
Dale, do you have any concerns being the road agent?
Being an ATV owner and rider, I kind of sit on both sides of the fence. I certainly enjoy getting more places to ride and better access to trails. As the highway super, it certainly is gonna put more maintenance on Spofford Road. You know, you have a couple hundred machines on a weekend going up and down that hill. It's gonna need attention on Monday morning, especially if it's a dry season.
Yeah.
That would, you know, that's my only.
Okay. Nobody else from the board has any questions for Dean? Or?
I do have one. Dean, you said that there were some grants available for helping with calcium. Do you know the time frame on those from the time that you apply for them to they're granted?
Yeah, absolutely, because I actually write the grants
Yep.
for our local clubs. Grants are typically due to be in to the state of New Hampshire by May 10th. This year is pushed out to the 15th. And then it's awarded typically around the third week in June, it's awarded. And then from there, once it's awarded, then we can spend the money. So just as an example, one club up north was awarded $5,800 just to buy calcium for a couple of their smaller town roads to keep dust control down. So, I mean, it's just a matter of how much you want to apply for, what your real needs are. And we would certainly work with Dale on trying to determine how much the need would be over that period of time when we're riding, right? So, and absolutely as a club, as a membership, the membership talked last night, more than open to supporting and doing whatever we can. And that's money that's, because it's a 60-40, right? So the state will pay 60% of the grant, and the club members come up with the other 40%, or the club does in itself. So, absolutely, if that's something you think we need to do, we're absolutely open to that.
Thank you.
Dean, would it be possible to maybe do this on a trial basis, like a 30 or 60 day, just to get an idea on how it's going to work out? Or
It's up to you guys. I mean, it's up to you. I don't know how, the RSA is clear, I guess, once you guys make a decision. I mean, we still have to go and do all the signing, right? It'd be a huge burden if we got all the signs and spent all that money on the signs and the stakes and it got everything in, and after 30 days you said, you know what, we really don't like this idea, right? So, we would ask you just please, consider it as we move forward,
I mean, you're aware that Hillsborough or Pinnacle over that way, they did this, they passed it, now they want to reverse it because it costs the town so much more money, police department-wise, highway department-wise, so have you talked to them and to see what they ran into for problems?
No, I haven't. But Pisgah State Park is the largest state park in the state of New Hampshire.
Oh, I understand.
It's a huge resource to us, and I personally don't think that we tap it as a town, right? There's always additional things that cost money. But I think getting folks in, being able to have them to come into town and visit our businesses is a good thing for us. And it creates more economic development, everything. So I think it's a positive thing. And if we manage it correctly, and we're committed to making sure we manage it right, and working with Mike and working with Fish and Game to make sure that we keep the speeds down, we keep dust down, we keep the noise down, all that kind of stuff. I think it can be a win for the town, right?
All right, at this time, I'll open it to the public. I will ask that everybody come to the microphone and stand in line. Please state your name for the record and direct all your questions to the board. And anything that we need to have Dean or Mike or Dale or somebody answer, we can address at that time. And if the person ahead of you or a few people ahead of you have asked the same question, if you just need a better answer, if you could wait till the end, just so we don't keep hearing the same question over and over right off. But anybody, whoever wants to come first, more than welcome to come up to the mic.
My name's Mitch Bierman, and my family has lived on Old Spofford Road for 50 years. What originally attracted my parents to Old Spofford Road in 1970 is still its appeal today. A perfectly quiet, beautiful old country road with few homes and little traffic. Sorry. With few homes and little traffic on a quiet hillside. I'm here tonight to voice my opposition and those of my neighbors from allowing off-road vehicles and ATVs to use Old Spofford Road as an access way to downtown Winchester from the Pisgah Wilderness State Park. Aside from the noise, the physical deterioration of our road, dust, and garbage that will be thrown on the side of the road, my first fear is for the safety of the residents of our street, as well as that of the AT riders themselves. Old Spofford Road is a Class C dirt road that is barely wide enough in most places for one car, let alone two. At least half of the road is a winding, steep incline with nothing but ditches on either side. Aside from the normal traffic of those of us who live on the road and postal deliveries, UPS and FedEx trucks, there's currently increased traffic going on the road for construction of homes that are being built and frequent construction trucks traveling up and down the roads. We all know from personal experience from ATVs that are already illegally driving on our road that they do not obey the 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, which I believe for ATVs on public roads is really only 10 miles per hour. I fear that when these drivers come in contact with cars and trucks traveling at normal speeds, someone's going to get hurt in a very bad way. It's an invitation for physical disaster and possibly somebody's death. A recent WMUR-TV news spot stated that during the current pandemic, there's a large increase in the number of new ATV drivers, resulting in an increase in accidents due to high speeds and alcohol abuse while driving. There's little police patrolling on Old Spofford Road, and there really isn't any way that the police department will be able to control the number of vehicles traveling at illegal speeds on the road. This also leads me to the question of insurance liability. ATV users are not required to carry insurance, so who pays for property and personal injury if there is an accident? There's also the question of underage drivers without licenses riding with their families on the road. In addition to the safety issues of the ATV drivers, there's also the obvious safety issues of those of us who live on the road. From driving back and forth to town or just crossing the street to get the mail. So many times while I've been driving my car, I've been approached at high speeds by multiple ATV drivers traveling in packs and have narrowly avoided collision. There's also numerous quality of life issues, obviously. The noise pollution of ATVs, the dust that floods our properties as they drive by, as well as further deterioration of a dirt road, which is in constant need of repair. All adding to the many reasons that I believe that this should not be passed. The idea that riders who are in the park need access to the center of town to buy a sandwich at Mr. Mike's gas station is ridiculous. One would assume that riders would have the foresight to pack before they leave for their day trip to the park, and don't need to turn on Old Spofford Road into a Pisgah Wilderness trail in order to drive into town on public roads, littering our street with even more beer and soda cans and garbage tossed onto our property. As residents of the town of Winchester, we pay high property taxes, which I might add I believe are being slated to increase again this year. Those of us who live on Old Spofford Road don't get any town water, no town septic, no access to cable, and yet we're being asked to allow people who don't live on our street or even in our town or state to use our road for their own personal pleasure. This assault on our street will most definitely drive down our property values. If the Pisgah ATV Club so desires access to the center of town, I suggest they be allowed to ride down Old Chesterfield Road, which is a paved, two-lane road that leads directly from the park into the center of town and is a full mile closer than access from the top of Old Spofford Road. I'm submitting tonight this petition that has been signed by a majority of the homeowners of Old Spofford Road, all of whom are totally opposed to the idea of allowing ATV traffic on our street. Of the 23 homes of the 28 on the street that I spoke to, all but 3 signed the petition. As selectmen who are voted into your positions by the tax-paying people of this town, I believe it's your responsibility to hear the voices of the majority of the property owners of Old Spofford Road who do not want this to become essentially a speedway and back road trail for Pittsburgh Wilderness ATV Club, and to vote against this request. How would you feel if this was your road? Thank you. Thank you.
Robert Gussman of 566 Old Spofford Road. I, of course, agree with everything Mr. Bierman said. A couple of points. I did submit a letter to the town, and I presume the selectmen have all read it and will consider it. I've lived on this road for 30 years. I recall when the state park was open at the end of the road. I can recall amusing myself by counting the number of beer cans on the side of the road, which usually numbered 100. I can recall my neighbors and myself picking them up. I can recall yelling and gesticulating at people on ATVs to slow down, which they ignored. As far as the club goes, I accept everything the club says about all the discipline they have. But once you open the road, the people, there are other people who are going to be using the road, and they don't have this discipline. And I've seen it over the 30-year period. The road has changed character since the closing of the state park entrance. It was probably the most wonderful thing that happened to that road. The road has become tranquil, property values have increased. You cannot open the road just to the club. You have to open it to everyone. And everyone is not as well disciplined as the club. So I beg you not to do this. It's a terrible thing. And I agree that Old Chesterfield Road would be a much better choice with a commodious parking lot and much easier access to the park itself, which incidentally is closed at the moment on Old Spofford Road. The other thing is the deplorable condition of the road. It's totally unsafe for ATV traffic, particularly the undisciplined ones who come. I've seen youngsters go up and down the road, underage, people from out of states, people speeding. The whole thing is going to change the character of the road, make all our property less valuable. I just can't see how it makes any sense whatsoever. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren Reese, 70 Old Spofford Road. Just a couple of questions or comments. I am too concerned about other people, not our club, but other people, out-of-staters coming in. And the idea of having a 30 or 60-day trial period, that sounded maybe okay, but I know in my vast experience working with people that everybody's on the best behavior during a trial period, or this is, let's just try this for a little while. Everybody's on their best behavior. And I do not know very much about ATV riding, so I need somebody to tell me, so if I'm driving my car down the road and the ATV people are going the same way I'm going, do I go out around them? I mean, how does that, is it like somebody's on a bicycle? Or if there's, you know what I'm saying? I don't know the etiquette. I don't know what it looks like. So if somebody could explain that. Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean.
That's a great question. So let me explain a little bit. So obviously common courtesy. So the etiquette is that if you're going to be overtaken by a car, right? The ATVs are trained, I should say, suggested that they pull over and allow the cars to go by. That's why the state likes to see traffic moving together at the same time. If it's 20, 25 miles an hour, the ATVs are moving at the same speed, right? So that the traffic isn't being held up or moved, right? And one other thing I would add too, and I forgot to mention, is that these ATVs are 50 inches wide. They're not a full-size pickup or a car, right? The state park is limited to 50 inches. So that's the traffic that we're looking at, is 50-inch unit.
Which there still isn't room for width-wise on Old Spofford Road.
Good evening. Pam Stoll, 54 Westport Road. I have a couple of questions. Basically, 2 years ago, the town of Winchester deemed the stretch of road scenic road from Howard Street all the way through to the end of Old Westport Road. It seems to me that was set up for bikes, horses, kids, skis, scooters. I enjoy that kind of traffic. The antique cars. I see no reason for the ATVs to have access to Tard Road to get into Pisgah. It's my understanding that there are 4.5 parking areas right now available to them. 2.5 of them in Hinsdale, across from the mill and up the hill, and one in Chesterfield and one currently in Winchester. I would think that'd be enough spots for them. I've also been to Pisgah for the last year, going up with friends on ATVs. This year I find that 2/3 of their trails have been closed due to storm damage and or bridge replacements or repairs that have not taken place. This I have checked on from March 1st all the way through to July 1st of this year. If their trails aren't being maintained, why do they need more access? Thank you.
So let me answer that. So the state of New Hampshire manages the park, and there's only so many trails. Right now, Old Chesterfield Road is closed due to the 20-acre blowdown from a microburst that had laid the trees over Old Chesterfield Road leading to Foam Pond. All right. We have been in contact with the State Forestry Department, and the State Forestry Department has deemed that a salvageable area, that they want to go in and cut the timber and salvage all the trees that have been blown down, and that's why that section of trail hasn't been opened. Okay, the blowdown is so bad and it is so dangerous that we are not allowed to do any tree cutting at all in there because it requires a machine. Right. There is no bridges that are not open. All bridges are open in the park that the trails ride on. The club is in there every single week with a machine and a York raking the turnoffs and all the trails, making sure that they're passable and that the park stays what we call a family-friendly park, which is not a very aggressive park to ride in. It's a great opportunity for young families to come with their children that are learning to be ATV riders and to be able to ride without having an aggressive course to be on, right? So just to, again, to reiterate, that trails are open except for the blowdown area. And that section of blowdown where that trail ends to where Foam Pond is only about 1.5 miles of trail that's closed. There's only 2 parking lots available for ATVs, all right? The Route 119 parking lot down by O'Neill's Paper Mill, it's 3.3 miles from this light here down to that parking area, and the parking area on Old Chesterfield Road. There is not any other parking areas open to ATVs because ATVs are not allowed in that area. The one that I think the madam was referring to was maybe Kilburn, which is a walking area, wilderness area only, and Old Chesterfield Road is only a snowmobile parking area and parking for hiking. There's no ATVs allowed in that end nor the end of the park. The only section of trails in the park is Reservoir Trail, South Link Trail, Broad Brook Trail, and Old Chesterfield Road and John Hill Road. That's all the riding there is. It's under 20 miles of riding. So right now, that's where that is.
Good evening, Lindsay Pickard, 96 Richmond Road. I don't actually live in the area where you're considering opening up the road. It sounds as though the club has done an excellent job in their research, and I really appreciate the select board thinking of these things tonight. My issue is kind of always the same. I think it's great that we have an opportunity to invite people into our town and to support our businesses locally. I am a huge fan of supporting local business and the small business and people enjoying Winchester. My concern is infrastructure. We've heard from the police and we've heard from the highway, and I would tend to think that we could hear from the EMT as well. Is this town willing to plan for and ensure that our police are accurately staffed and our EMTs are staffed and our highway has the needs? Because those costs trickle down to the town themselves. And, recently the planning board approved some exemptions for a business out on Scotland Road. And so now we have increased potential traffic in 2 different areas in town, and I haven't really heard from the select board or any of those entities about what might happen for our staffing. And I think that's an important consideration whenever we're looking to grow business. Thank you.
Anybody else in the public? Yeah, come on, right up to the mic.
Gary Lee, Old Spofford Road. I've been here for about 30 years now, and I can tell you that there has been a lot of ATV traffic and motocross traffic up and down that road ever since I've been here. All unregistered vehicles, and many of them today, especially over the 4th of July weekend, some of them are kids, they're children, they're 12 years old, and they're speeding up and down the road now. And when this road officially opens up as a throughway for unregistered vehicles, I hate to think of what it's going to be like now or then. And I find, who's going to drive them home? Are they going to ride back the way they came? So I am opposed to this plan for traffic, ATV traffic on Old Spofford Road.
Sir.
My name is Whitney Lindenbringer. I own multiple properties on Old Chesterfield Road. And I think I'm probably already reiterating some of the things you already heard this evening, but I have some significant concerns about speed on the roadway. As Chief Gillette already mentioned, there is a real issue with speed coming down Old Chesterfield Road. I'm very concerned about the corner of Elm Street and Howard Street. I've driven up and down that hill every day for the last 14 years, and I cannot tell you how many times I've almost gotten into an accident just in my vehicle. I cannot imagine a small child on an ATV that is small and therefore difficult to see whipping out of that corner, perhaps not looking carefully at my 2,000-pound minivan coming down the hill, even if I am careful about my speed at 25 miles per hour. I also own livestock, and I'm concerned about, I already have issues with people riding the power lines, coming across my property, running over fences, and while my property is not exactly on the route that they're talking about, I'm concerned about the noise pollution, spooking my animals. I've had neighbors threatening to shoot my animals when they've been spooked out of their field, and so I'm concerned about what that turns into my liability if ATVs come riding up along my fence line, spook my animals into a stampede out of the field. Now they're my neighbors. That's a problem for me, so thank you.
May I reiterate? Yeah, there's a lot of traffic. All this traffic that we're talking about has nothing to do with the ATV club, right? There is no trails outside of the park currently. So anybody that's riding on these trails is riding illegally. Children are required by law to have, when they reach 12 years of age, to go through a certified OHRV training course so they know how all the rules and regulations and what the laws and all that stuff are in order to get a card. They have to have a card. They're not allowed to ride by themselves without being accompanied by an adult 25 years or older. So, and they're not allowed to be the leader of, if they're riding together, say there was 3 of mom, dad, right, and the child has to be in the middle. The child can't be in the rear, the child can't be in the front. So there's rules and regulations that not only the police will enforce, but Fish and Game also enforces. So Fish and Game is there to help do the enforcement as well. So that's just so that we're all clear. You know, a lot of this that's going on is because people are doing it illegally now. They speed illegally, they make noise illegally, they drive. And also, I will also add that ATVs have to be off the trails hour after sunset. So they can't be out at dark. They're not supposed to be out at dark. So, again, it's illegal.
I don't think it's your club, I think it's the out-of-staters. Now, Massachusetts, do they have to have a license to run in New Hampshire? Does anybody check those?
In the state of New Hampshire, you cannot operate an OHRV, which is either a snowmobile or a ATV, without a valid driver's license. So, it's driving without a license. Same rules.
Hi, my name is Judith Bischoff, and I live on Old Spofford Road, and as of this week, it's been 41 years. And I can tell you right now that it's gotten a lot of ATV movement. Now, I just came down after a rainstorm, and I can tell you that, and this is not a slam on the maintenance people who do the road, believe me, that is not a road that maintains the width that it needs to. We have to be really careful because it gets all slushy and it washes out. And anybody who thinks that this is going to be enforceable and this is going to be safe really hasn't lived on the road like I have and like most of my neighbors have. It is a problem waiting to happen. And I just pray that it's going to be a safety thing. I don't know how it can be enforced. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Kurt Domkeeler. I'm from Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. As one of those out-of-staters that I keep hearing about, I go up to Jericho, which is way north, many times, and I bring a lot of business there over the years. Mainly because, I can't really ride at Pisgah the whole day, because you get hungry, you get tired, you want to drink something that's non-alcoholic even, it's something that you don't think to pack a sandwich when you leave your house and drive 2 hours away. You don't want to do that. You want to go maybe right into town and grab something. It's as simple as that. And another thing to address the traffic. I hear like everyone's concerned that, the traffic on that road with the UTV sounds like it's already happening. So what I heard the chief say is that he's going to, park a cop car there for the first, however, to enforce this law, which to me that sounds like the cash cow for the town, You know how many tickets you can get if that's a problem? I mean, maybe there should be someone there already. And if this gives them a reason to be there, that's money coming to the town. Thanks.
We write a state ticket, not a dime goes to the town of Winchester. You write an OHRV ticket to somebody, it goes to the state. I write a traffic ticket to somebody out here on Main Street, it goes to the state. Town doesn't get any money off of citations.
Nope. You didn't know that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bonnie Lavelli, Old Westport Road. I'm not quite in a butter. My property, end of my property comes where it would come out of Old Spofford Road onto Old Westport Road. And to me, that's an invitation for disaster. When the cars come out of there, when an ATV or a group of ATVs come out of there, I'm also really concerned about all the kids on Howard Street or any other children along that route. And the other thought I was thinking, but Dale addressed it, that's a dirt road and that's going to add a lot of maintenance. And also, it's been quiet for ATVs. When I first moved here, they screamed down the rails for trails illegally, spreading dust and whatever. And that had kind of calmed down when the price of gas went up. But it kind of calmed down. It also kind of stopped the mud bogging on the power line. And I'm thinking that if they start coming down Old Spofford Road, it's an invitation to turn onto that power line, mud bog, go back onto the rails for trails. And it just does not make any sense, since the lion's share will probably not be this club. It'll be people from out of state, because that's what you see. The other concern is I think there's also the opportunity not just to buy a sandwich at Mr. Mike's, but to buy alcohol. And then you have ATVs with people that have been drinking on the streets of Winchester. So, I mean, in support of the people on Old Spofford Road, I think this is a big mistake.
Mike Frazier. I live on Old Westport Road. I can empathize. I'm not directly affected where our property is, but I can tell you that take a trip up to Troy Articat. And somebody, my wife and I purchased side by side this year. We purchased it, I guess, at the prime time, March, April. You go there right now, there's not a machine on the floor. And the reason why is COVID has spiked an interest in people being outdoors, recreational activities. I get it. I feel for you folks. If you live on that road, you know, you have your reservations. But this town as a whole has to decide, what is it that we want to be? What are we going to attract? You look at the Jerichos, you look at Berlin, you look at Pittsburgh. They bring in a lot of revenue from ATVs. I was always told you never look at a gift horse in the mouth, right? So if we don't decide what direction we want to go in revenue-wise, we know we have a problem there. Can we bring some revenue potentially from this? Can we add things as a result of this? Can we expand and build on this? I think there's opportunity. You said yourself, a great point. I didn't know until you said it, that Pisgah is the largest state park in the state. That blows my mind, because when I go out there in my side-by-side and I do what seems like the 8-mile loop up to the reservoir and back, it's pretty boring. But if we can expand on that, if we can add to that, I get it. There's certain few that are certainly going to have reservations. It is going to put a strain on the policing department. Like everything, it's going to be a learning curve. I think that we'd be remiss to not at least try this, because it's working in other parts of the state. And this is a revenue generator that, Mr. Ropes, I know your son last week was just up in, where was he? Pittsburgh. You know, I mean, people travel to those spots to go there. So we're worried about out-of-staters, absolutely. But revenue is out-of-staters. What are we going to do with ourselves? Where do we want to go as a town? If we look that gift horse in the mouth time and time again, this gives a little opportunity to put Winchester as a spot on the map. And at the same time, I mean, last week I was on vacation. We went up to Cat Hole in Claremont. That's a pretty big destination spot. They have miles of roadway that they've authorized to get between the Burger King and Cat Hole. Yeah, they've shut other spots down. It works nicely. You know, 15, 20 miles an hour is max speed. And anybody that rides a four-wheeler knows that 1 mile on pavement is the equivalent to doing, like, 20 or 25 miles on dirt. Tires are expensive on those things. You don't ride the roads unless you have to. So it really wouldn't be, I don't think, one of those things that, let's go ride the 4.5 miles of road and never enter Pisgah. So just, we got to open our minds is all I'm asking. I mean, it stinks for those that have to be directly affected, and I feel for that, but we're going to rely on the police department, because that's what they're there for. And I just can't believe that Fish and Game says we wash our hands of the opportunity of pulling people over on the sides of these roadways, because they made an entire TV show about it that we all watch every night, right? It's Saturday night. So once they're outside of that park, they... But if I'm riding up and down Old Westport Road, he's going to pull me over, you know? He's going to grab me. Absolutely. So I feel like there is still some skin in the game there, and he does live in Winchester, Hinsdale anyways. I see Eric all the time. And from an EMT perspective, as I am on Swansea, firefighter, lieutenant, and EMT, I don't see it putting much more strain than the motocross track and your speedway track that you're already losing opportunity as far as revenue generating to tie off some costs to those folks based on the sheer number of calls I hear on my little pager every Saturday and every Sunday for motor track events and speedway events that your ambulance is called out for, while Rescue Inc. or Golden Cross is already down there on standby to run the shuttle because they can't leave the event. So, you know, that in itself are just a number of reasons that I encourage folks to just be a little more optimistic about the opportunity of potentially becoming the next Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Page. I'm the president of the Mount Pisgah ATV Club. And we have an educational program called Trail Patrol to try to calm down some of this law-breaking, law-abiding stuff. And we go out and pick up trash, we cut trees, cut brush. We maintain the trails very well. And we're here to help the police department and educate these people that are breaking the law. And we'll be out there as often as we can. It's called Trail Patrol. You'll probably see us out there. We have vests.
Lauren Reese again, Old Spofford Road, 70. I believe that our club does what they say they're going to do. I believe they do take care of our roads and look out for litter and have the educational program. I am worried about the other people that come in. I don't care, they could be from out of state or a different town. That is what I'm concerned. I don't want you to think that I'm for this just because I did not say it the first time I spoke. I am not for this. But I feel bad that our club needs some more places to ride and whatever, but I don't want them going up and down my road. Thank you.
Can I just ask Dean a clarifying question? The parking area right across the Green Bridge,
Yes, Mike?
that's not going to be specifically for people who put their trailers?
No, there is no trail parking at this time anywhere that I'm aware of, other than the Route 119 parking lot and the ranger station. It's the only trailer parking area. Unless later you think this is someplace.
That's up high.
Rick Horton, Scotland Road. I sat there not sure whether I should say anything at all or what, but I do have a few things to just bring up. I understand the concerns, absolutely, and maybe there's more planning that needs to be involved to make this work. Having been in the motorcycle industry for 20 years, I saw mill towns and destroyed by losing industry come back and be thriving by tourism. Up north, tourism happens to be snowmobiling and ATV. I had that territory for 10 plus years, and I watched businesses thrive. I watched businesses die because of certain decisions that happen in the tourism side of things. Our own master plan talks about encouraging tourism in the town of Winchester. That's something else I think we need to really take into consideration. The other piece I'd like to mention is having had a young child who rode on trails up north, I do know back then that kids could not be on a road or cross a road if they did not have their OHRV. I don't know if that's changed, but I used to have to get off, walk across the road, bring my boys' snowmobile or ATV across, then let them get back on and continue on. So there are some rules for 8, 9-year-old kids not riding on roads. And again, I don't know if this plan is the right plan, but I think it's something, if it has a given weekend, I think when it very first started in Gorham, they did that. They had certain weekends during the Jericho ATV Festival that they would allow that to happen and see where that went. I think there's opportunity, but we have to tread lightly and be careful to give that balance of business and residential. Thank you.
Question actually for the ATV club. I apologize, I don't know the answer to this. Has there been any consideration, we talk about growing the business and having an opportunity for more people to visit. Has there been consideration or conversation about expanding the existing trails? And then just as a little business idea, has anybody thought about setting up a food truck in any of these handy locations where people might come and stop and want to grab a bite to eat?
Great question about the park. So the park, this state park, which is the New Hampshire State Park, part of the New Hampshire State Park system, is governed on what they call a 7-year management plan, right? And the ATV trail system that's in the park gets reviewed every 7 years, right? So we're about 4.5 years into the 7-year plan. And at that time, over the last 35, 40 years, they've never considered opening up any additional trails in that park because there was never anybody that came to the table that wanted to expand it. There's hikers, bikers, horses, foot traffic, snowmobiles, right? And snowmobiles ride all over. And one of the things about this particular park, because it's an ATV and snowmobile park, is that in the winter time, the ATVs then can ride all of the snowmobile trails that are groomed snowmobile trails with decent cover. So then the trail system quadruples in the winter, but not obviously in the summer, because there's places they don't want them. There's a lot of footpaths, wilderness areas where they don't want machines, and we work hard now as a club to keep people out of there. There's always somebody out there trying to break into these areas. So we work really hard there. And one of the things about in the winter time is that the ATVs are not allowed to leave the park because landowners that the local snowmobile club has worked really hard to get landowner permission from doesn't allow ATVs outside on those trails. So that's another thing. So that's why right now we're working on trying to get it expanded and trying to get more growth in there, have more trails, have loops, have circles and things like that for them to go. But at this time, we're waiting for the plan to come back up in another 2.5 years.
Thank you, Lindsay, for your comment. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for clarifying what you just said. What I am hearing is that there's a compromise here. They're working to get those trails expanded. We have the opportunity to bring new business to the outside of these trails, like food trucks. We're going to keep our neighbors happy, and we're going to make the ATV club happy. So my suggestion would be to keep working on those trails, to expand them, because 4.3 miles that's not going to put us on the map. Another 20-mile expansion would put us on the map. So that's just my opinion. Thank you.
I also live on the Old Spofford Road and don't enjoy the noise now from the illegal ATVs, and I know that's not going to go away, that's only going to increase. I have a question. I hear a lot about business development in the town. What are the projections on how much revenue would opening this trail bring into the town? What's the liability to the town that's going to cost the taxpayers? Right now, the police department, I've called several times when there's been kids buzzing up and down the road and doing donuts, and I don't get a response. And I know they're busy in other places, so the response time isn't there. If the town gives them the freedom of riding on the road, are you taking the responsibility for the liability of someone getting hurt? Because none of those machines that I know of have insurance. And if they hit a car, I almost had one hit me Saturday. I was pulling out of my driveway, come down the road. He was coming up the other way, and we both had to go into the bank to avoid each other. That's not going to stop. That's only going to increase. And so who's liable? I don't want to have to pay for somebody running into me. Maybe you can address that.
Well, I think the police would be unregistered vehicles on the road, down the road. It's the same as a car. I don't have any answer.
Takes me a minute to get here. Is it the same liability as a car? If a smart ATV rider has insurance, and if they don't have insurance, he knows what to do. Insurance is a big thing. New Hampshire is one of the ones you don't need it, but you really should have it.
Jerry Livesey, I'm a member of the Mount Pisgah ATV Club. I took some time to go around to some of the local businesses, and we drafted a letter of support from the club. Very simply, the undersigned businesses supported the proposed Mount Pisgah ATV Club extension from John Hill Road down to
through the Old Spofford Road down to Elm Street on Winchester, New Hampshire. These following businesses are in support of that, and I'd just like to give that to the selectmen, that they can read them, and then also consider this as part of the whole project.
One more note, my wife reminded me, I think it's worth reiterating, just even my experience last week up in Claremont. What did we drop? $45 on lunch, Salt Hill Pub, we were able to ride up to, walk to, similar in this fashion. Ride to the end, stop, walk a quarter mile, you get to the restaurant. So 45, 50 bucks there, another 10, 20 bucks on fuel, and we dropped 300 bucks because my wife had to have some new stuff from running while we were up there. So again, because we were in the area, you know, I went in for a sweatshirt and she got two. That's just the way it works. But ultimately, we were in the area. We dropped $400 that day, 2 people. Again, gift horse in the mouth. We got to try some new things if we want to get out of the same old rut. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Eric Domkaler. I'm an out-of-stater. I'm from Turners Falls, Mass. I come up to Pisgah twice a week to ride my dirt bike. And I'm coming whether the trails are open to the town or not. But there really is no reason for me to come to town as it is, because I turn, before I get to town. And, I just wanted to say UTVs, ATVs, dirt bikes, they're really expensive. And, you got to make really good money to maintain them and use them a lot. So, the people that are coming up here for this from Connecticut and communist Massachusetts are going to end up spending, a ton of money in your town. So, good luck.
I'm coming up. Ooh, go for it.
Go ahead. You're up before me.
Well, again, I just really want to reiterate, this is a perfect example. Our town is so divided. It's either the neighbors want something, the neighbors don't want something. The ATV people want something. Why can't we work together for this? Let's work together on an expansion of a 20-mile loop to put the town on the map so the neighbors stay happy. This is such a good teaching lesson. We could bring more business. We could put a food truck up there. We have the opportunity now to work together instead of us all fighting. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Leonard Delgado, and I'm an out-of-stater, Brattleboro. I want to thank you for giving the time to sit there and listen to all of us. I am for adding the trail. I don't envy the position you're in. I've been in a couple spots where both sides are calling you around the clock. I ride in Vermont and New Hampshire. Upstate, in Vermont, there's a lot of good trails and some crappy ones. The good ones have all the signs out. It's all designated correctly, and there's no questions of where we're supposed to ride. Now, when I was a kid, I rode on all your yards. I rode dirt bike. I rode my dirt bike everywhere. I'm the dude that was cutting cookies in front of your house. Now I got a place to ride legally and raise my kids doing it legally. Having my kids do it legally. I didn't care which yard I rode. This is my snowmobile or my dirt bike. But now I can show my kids the right way. And I'm going to do it. I can be better than I was. One town I was in New Hampshire, the folks were riding to the restaurant, and they were hanging out, and they were walking through the village. It doesn't dawn on me to do that, because I'm going there to ride my butt off. But here are folks getting off their machines, and they're all lined up, walking down through the town. It's incredible, and they're eating and hanging out. The trails are wide enough to pass on both sides. The organization is impressive. I hope that you take that into account and make it the right way to do it. So even maybe your kids and grandkids can enjoy an American pastime. It is fun and can be really safe. Thank you for your time.
Is there anybody else that wanted to speak? Peer pressure.
Vince Stetson. Lived here my whole life. Rode bikes when I was a teenager. Or bikes, dirt bikes, four-wheelers, three-wheelers. Up in Pisgah, had a blast. Did some illegal stuff. But, you know, when you're younger, you don't care. You grow up, go to school, get a job, have kids. It's like, oh, hey, I gotta do the right thing now. Sent my daughter through the course, did her thing, got a card. We go out riding. And yeah, these people say, oh, they're gonna come down here and get a drink. And every time I go riding, it's Powerade, water. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love having a beer, alcohol. I mean, fine, whatever, but my daughter's with me. Or my son, my wife's cousin, my family. I'm not gonna risk this for alcohol to ruin their day, my day, or anything else. I mean, then you see, talk about beer cans on the side of the trail. I don't know if anybody knows, but a motocross helmet, it's really hard to drink with. Your mouth is covered. I mean, and you got a clutch on some of them, some you don't. I mean, yeah, they might go down and get some, but they're not going to throw it on the side of the road because if they're wearing a helmet, like you don't have to, but it's kind of a smart thing to do. They're not going to be drinking while riding on the trail. I mean, they might go somewhere and party and hang out, whatever, you know, and then there it looks like a crap hole, but they're not littering the side of the road. I mean, you drive down, what's it, 10, 119, cans, trash, litter all over the place. See any ATVs on them road? You might a little bit, but you get the people that just don't care. I mean, it's common sense. It's all common sense. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, 3 years ago, we didn't have a voice. Now we have a voice. We're almost 400 strong. Three years ago, it started out in his living room. We have 400 people. 400 people. That's a lot. We're watching you guys. We're watching these dirt bike guys. We're going to see them, and we're going to tell them to cut the crap. That's what we're here for. The club is here to help. If we can help, we're going to do it.
Let me ask you something. Would it help the club any if they, like Nicole said, put a food truck up there so they wouldn't have to come down onto the road? Is that feasible? Should we be working that direction, or?
You got a food truck?
It's a question to you. Which way do you think we should go?
Well, I work every day, so I'm not going to buy a food truck.
Yeah, no, I didn't say you.
I mean, is that going to help your businesses on Main Street? That's what we're trying to do, economic development. We don't want to.
But we're trying to keep the traffic off the roads also.
I hear you. We're just trying to come up with a solution.
That's what I say, we ought to work together.
That's right, exactly. And we want to be here to help everybody, not just us.
Hi, Tina Perkins from 43 Michigan Street. I'm just curious about what businesses they would be going to visit and buy gear down here, because we have 3, maybe 4. Are they also going to be riding their bikes down to the restaurant, the Rustic Table? Or are they going to be riding downtown over to the Arlington Inn? Are they going to be riding downtown to Rite Aid? Because you know what? My kids are on bikes right now. They're really enjoying their little bit of freedom. And I'd like to know what businesses we're going to attract to be able to support these tons of people that are going to increase the tax base for our town.
So the plan is to come off from Howard Street on Elm Street and stop right at the bridge, not cross the river, not coming onto Main Street because it's a state highway, it's not your jurisdiction. So you'd be parking at the public parking space on the west side of Elm Street Bridge.
Swansea, New Hampshire. So I don't really have a dog in this fight other than liking to ride the pirate. It seems to me that the residents are concerned with people going to Mr. Mike's, getting alcohol, running through stop signs. I like to say they're doing that now. I see a lot of the police bulletins on Facebook, and all that stuff's happening now in cars and trucks, probably as we're speaking. I'm not sure how the ATV club's going to make that any worse.
I'm not gonna make it worse, I guarantee it.
Hi again. I just want to go off of the last statement. We've heard from people from Massachusetts, Swansea, Ringe, and the residents of Old Stoddard Road that live in this town that voted you in, that pay taxes here. Again, compromise. We want to make everybody happy. Build a bigger trail. It's not that hard. You can do it. Keep your residents happy. That's it. That's all I got.
Are you talking that to build the trail system bigger out there so that they don't have to come down?
Yes.
So build it bigger in the woods so we don't get any revenue out of it. Just keep them up there. Go a food truck up there. What, the town runs the hot dog stand? Is that what you want to do?
No.
Just trying to clarify.
No. If you build a bigger trail up there, people, when they're done with their ride, are going to come to our businesses.
So
they're going to patronize our businesses that way. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So I get you. Similar to Tina's comment about what do we have that they're going to come to? I mean, chicken or egg kind of concept. What did Berlin have that attracted everybody up there to begin with? Who the heck goes to Berlin? But they've got a bunch of trails, and now they've got a bunch of sporting goods and other facilities, et cetera, et cetera. So we have to start somewhere. Compromise, I get it. You know, food truck sounds like a great idea.
That's not the basis of my conversation.
Be the end all, but do we have an agreement? My question is, given that that is the largest park in the state, which again still blows my mind, that's pretty impressive to know that we have the largest of something in the state, and we're choosing to maybe look past capitalizing that. I can't even get my head around that, but that is what I'm hearing. We have the largest of something that the rest of the state doesn't have. We have major revenue issues in town, and we're constantly trying to figure out how to generate more revenue, but we just can't seem to get past go. Do we have an agreement from the state to be able to build more trails? Is it just a matter of you guys putting your heads together, bulldozers, chainsaws, and we go in and we start making more trails, or do we need, all kinds of, like, for the purple horny toad leopard straw kind of thing to have to go through a bunch of hoops for it? I mean, what is I'm just trying to understand, how much bigger can we build that to get them to come?
Well, those are great questions. So again, yes, the park is over 13,000 acres, and it's governed by a bunch of laws, real laws that Congress would have to change in order to expand the system. Believe you me, we would love more than anything to be in the park and have it bigger. But that doesn't negate the fact that we still want to come to town, right? Come down to town and get something to drink or eat. That's what we want to do. Regardless if we had 150 miles, but they would still want to come downtown and get something to eat and drink. Until the law, until enough voice is there present during the next management plan for Pisgah State Park, which is, by the way, a wilderness park, right? Until there's enough voice there to get the state to consider changing, they will not add any more trail systems to the existing ATV trails that are available. Believe you me, we are trying, but we're not there yet. We're still working in the plan. have to be part of the plan. We can't go and cut trees, we can't build bridges, we can't do anything without the state's permission. And we work very closely with the state. So, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, based on what the local sales are of ATVs and the interest, especially with COVID spike, again, there's zero inventory. You can't buy a used one, let alone a new one, anywhere. So as that continues to grow, I have to believe that, I know, Jack, you mentioned Mr. Mike's is going to close up and move up the road a quarter mile in a little while. And I was under the impression we were never going to be able to go over there to get fuel anyways. You really can't cross state roads, given its blessing. So that's not the issue. Maybe you carry your jerry can with you, go fuel and grab something. But ultimately, I have to believe that store is not going to become low-income housing or something. It's ultimately going to be another store. So maybe a sandwich shop or something else.
Yeah.
Better not be low-income, but ultimately you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So it opens avenues for other things, whether that ends up being the ATV park, related apparel or sales, or just a sandwich shop that sells some sodas. This might be a mistake.
Good evening. My name is Linda Page, and I am a member of the Mount Pisgah ATV Club. I live in Hinsdale. I come to Winchester at least once a week, whether I'm just driving through to go to Keene, or I'm over here at a meeting at Dean's house, or whatever. But I live in the area, I shop in the area. Whenever we go out of town with our ATV, we spend many hundreds of dollars. Like the gentleman mentioned, his wife goes in a store, and yeah, my husband has that problem too. So when we're riding our ATVs and we're in a place where we can go eat lunch somewhere, we like to do a big loop with our ATV. We have a side-by-side and an ATV. We bought an ATV under 50 inches special so we could ride here in Pisgah State Park. Yes, my husband has two. So we have the little one for around here because the laws in southern New Hampshire are 50 inches wide. That's a state law, 50 inches. And then we have the side-by-side that we trailer up north to Berlin and Gorham and Pittsburgh and all over up there. And I mean, the minute we leave the driveway, I know it's going to be at least $500, period. That's what kind of money we spend. We both work full-time. Everybody that rides these machines has to work full-time because these are expensive toys. We do not drink and drive. We don't even drink. Why would we spend money on that when we can buy another ATV? So I think that the talk about the ATVs being an economic driver is really, really important. If you look at the other towns in other parts of the state that have tried to make it so that it's easy for people to come from out of town, whether they're staying at motels or campgrounds or whatever, but they're driving in and they're spending the day. I'm not going to pack a sandwich to go up to Pisgah. I want to ride around for the day, and I want to stop and relax at lunchtime. I don't want a picnic. I want to be served. I worked hard all week long. I want to go in a restaurant and be served. So that's part of the thought process that a lot of people have when they're thinking, oh, I want to go to Pisgah and I want to ride. Now, if they could spend the day instead of just 2 hours riding, because by the time you've driven to wherever you're going to ride, you want to be there for a while. So that's the opportunity that Winchester is going to have to think about. And over the next few years, really think about that hard, because as Dean mentioned, Pisgah State Park is actually operating on a 25-year plan, and they broke that down into little 7-year chunks. So we're in the current 7-year chunk. We have to wait for the end of that. But that's part of a bigger master plan, and that's part of a bigger plan with the state. So to say, oh, just open some trails, it's a state park. We can't just go up there and open some trails. But we can get to know all the people in the meantime. We can get to know all of the businesses in the meantime. Everybody can come together and think about, how do we want this to impact Winchester? How do we really want this to be part of a bigger picture? Do we want the ATVs coming down that road, or do we want them coming down that road? Do we want them to come out here? Do we want them to come out there? It's a thought process. we tried to present this, the plan that we're currently discussing today, as a thought. Can we do this? Is this feasible for the town of Winchester? Does this make sense? Does it work for law enforcement? He's already chasing kids. That's never good. We want to help with that, because as we educate more people on this process, then the culture will change. They don't have 12-year-olds running around illegally up in Berlin and Gorham. If they do, there's somebody all over that stuff, and all over their parents too, because ultimately their parents are responsible. So it's the bigger picture and the bigger thought process, and I'm hoping that you will take all of that into account in your decision this evening. Thank you.
It's still ultimately a question of safety and people on the road. Is Old Spofford Road really the way to go? Down a dirt road? Come down Old Chesterfield Road. If that's really what you want to do to build your town, go on a paved road. Don't go down a dirt road, because safety is going to be most important.
Dean, I have a couple of questions for you that have been brought up here. We just had a town-wide reassessment on property values. And it was brought up about the revenues, which we're all in favor of. But do you know of any studies that have been done on how in different towns these have affected home values? Because this gentleman just spoke, he had brought that up earlier, that that was one of his concerns, was the home values, resale value of these properties. Do you know any studies been done on them?
I sit on an advisory board for the Department of Transportation for the trails in Cheshire County as an advisor, as a user, as part of one of the user groups, not only the snowmobile but for the ATVs as well. And currently I can't speak to any particular numbers, but I do know that the Department of Transportation has commissioned New Hampshire University of New Hampshire to do a study, and they're working on a study because right now the New Hampshire Department of Transportation is currently doing an inventory of all of their roads and trails that they have, the old rail beds and all the trails that they own. So they're currently working on that. Obviously, you're aware of the rail to trail system that we're having from Keene to Brattleboro. We're working on that now. Right now, that's only open to snowmobiles and foot traffic and horses and bicycles. Non-ATV wheels, so they're looking at trying to say, what is a better user group? So how can, and as you guys know, that is trying to say, hey, we've got this beautiful rail trail system. What can be the economic driver for that, for these towns that it goes through? So I can't speak to any numbers, Jack. I'm sorry for that, but
that's fine.
I do know that there is some studies being commissioned out there.
Right.
It would be just like the same thing with the rail trail system as it benefits the town, as you guys know. The same thing we're doing, thinking about the park as well.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that was a question I had also, and I know that you're very well versed in the rail trails. The little bit of research that I have done, when the federal money was first proposed to buy back the rail beds, it was strictly for non-motorized vehicles, hiking, bicycles, horseback riding. Later on, and I'm not sure who petitioned what party to allow snowmobiles to be on it. So when I had talked to a state official on maybe possibly, and this is where you would come in to try to expand something, because I was thinking, all right, you have a large group of neighbors that don't want it, but a large group of riders that do. Why couldn't we come down from like O'Neill down a couple miles down these rail beds? They told me, the state had told me, it isn't impossible, but it could be very difficult to petition for the use of wheeled vehicles. So I was wondering if that, now that you have 400 members here, and as you spoke earlier that, you have a voice now. How many members or different clubs in the county, do you know?
In Cheshire County?
Yeah.
So the Mount Pisgah ATV Club is a Cheshire County club.
It is.
Unlike, you guys are very familiar with the snowmobile clubs. There's a snowmobile club in every town.
Yep.
Right? So one of the things when this is a 501c3 corporation, and when we established this club, this organization, we wanted to make sure that it was Cheshire County, all inclusive. We didn't want to have smaller clubs competing in different towns for trail systems. And in trails, unlike in the wintertime, snowmobile trails go through many farmer fields in Cheshire County, right? But in the summertime, those fields are all grown up with grasses and corns and things like that. So there's no trail network in the summer. So that's one of the biggest problems why there isn't a networking of trails for ATV, dirt bike type stuff, right? As for the rail trail system, it's the Department of Transportation holds the key to making that change. And at the time, back in the early 80s, very early 80s, when the federal money was put up as a grant to allow the Department of Transportation to purchase the rail trail system, right? There wasn't ATVs. Yeah, there was dirt bikes, but there was nothing. They weren't even a concept then, right? And the voice to the table at that time were bicycles, horses, and snowmobiles. There were the 3 or 4 that were there at the table, and that's why they're the ones that get on here. Obviously, snowmobiles don't do any damage because of the snow, right? ATVs are, they have rubber tires and they turn up the dirt, right? So, but until they change that, and the state recognizes that the ATV clubs, and there's 50 or 60,000 registered ATVs in the state of New Hampshire. Let's say I paid $61, I think it was, to register mine, right? So you do that, do the math. It's a hell of a revenue stream for the state of New Hampshire. They recognize that this is a huge user group that needs places to ride. And if the state doesn't recognize that they try to develop places to ride, people are going to ride illegally. And that's just not acceptable.
So has anyone that you know of, or has your group talked about petitioning the state for the use of at least a couple miles from Asheville to here?
No, well, the answer to that, we have approached them numerous times, and we understand the law, and right now it's not an option. So the Trails Bureau, the Department of Transportation owns the rail beds here, and they're managed by the Bureau of Trails. And it's not an option to have wheeled vehicles on those rail beds here in Winchester. It's not an option until the law changes, and we can't foresee that happening anytime soon.
Well, we have the senator coming in next week, Terry? 2 weeks. 22nd.
What is coming?
The senator, Senator Jake Hahn will be here.
Okay.
Maybe it'd be a good time for you to come in and talk to him.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks. I had the other question I have was, I don't know if you've given this any. It's probably a long shot that it would ever happen, but just in case, we established this parking lot over here a few years ago for off-street parking for overflow from Main Street.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a backup plan in case that's full?
Well, I know that you own the next piece of property across the street where the abandoned house is, right? The town. That's a very large parking area. It's not designated, We've talked about that. I think the last time we were here, we mentioned that. And that would be something that you, as a board, would be able to grant to the use of that if we needed it. And you did say about overnight parking. Well, ATVs have to be off the trails before dark anyways.
Yeah,
off the road.
Like I said, it probably never happened. I was just wondering, it'd be nice to always have a backup.
The only other option for the town, which would be part of the rail trail system, that management plan that the Southwest Regional Planning Commission put together, would be to open it up as the tannery property. To go in there and have a parking lot there. Because currently for the snowmobiling, right, the parking area we have for snowmobiling is at Coolix, right? And there's now, most people run up the road, which is illegal. right? So if we did have a parking spot like at the tannery property, right, then they could access that in the winter and access that in the summer, and that would help free up some of the space that's at the ranger station for the ATV trucks and trailers and Route 119 parking area. So that would be helpful as well. So, not that people would park there and walk into town from there, but definitely. And the only thing for us as an organization that we recognize is that we would definitely have to put gates up right there where the rail bed crosses the Bridge Street, because we can't have ATVs on the rail bed. We need to make sure we manage that correctly.
Yeah.
So.
Great, thanks.
So throughout the state of New Hampshire, there's many rail systems that were purchased with independent money or town's money or different types of state money that allow ATVs or wheeled vehicles. And certainly in Cheshire County, this is the Asheville rail line and the Fort something over there in Hinsdale, Fort whatever it is. And then the Cheshire rail line is all purchased with some federal grant money. And at that time, there's no wheeled vehicles allowed on those things. So you're correct. Hillsborough, I think, is ATVs. Brookline is some ATVs, but not here in Winchester is it allowed.
The only caution, like Jack said, is you got crossing at 119 and two different crossings at 119. That's pretty dangerous on itself, but great option.
Hello, my name is Kathy Steiner. I live on the Old Westford Road, Old Spofford Road, I'm sorry. I have lived there for 46 years, raised my family. Now I have grandkids who love to come to Grandma's house. It's been a very peaceful, wonderful neighborhood to raise my family in. We love it. I have no problem with your club. I think it's wonderful that you have something this organized and well established. But it sounds to me like you still need to work on how you're going to get into this park. And I just feel very bad to think that my weekends would be spent listening to 200 or more bikes going up and down, or whatever you call those things, my road. Think about that. That's a lot of noise. I just want you to really think about the condition of our road that it's in. The town works hard to keep it passable just for us who live there. And I have seen some really crazy drivers. I have encountered really crazy drivers because they get on that road and it's like they forget what they learned and how to drive. And it's not just ATVs. It's people driving trucks and cars that I don't even know where they live, but they've chosen my road to drive like a maniac. And I don't think having all of that other traffic there is going to change that. So really consider what you're doing when you make this decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Robert Janty, 111 Old Spofford Road. I just figure there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. Like, if there's a trial period, when it comes down to it, we have another meeting, and there's going to be a lot of out-of-staters. They're going to love it. We're all going to hate it because they're all 50 and over. We've lived their whole life for that reason. And the next meeting won't be so happy because we're going to have 3,000 out-of-staters thinking it's a good thing. When you got 28 people that live on this road, houses, we're going to be outnumbered. There's going to be a roaring crowd over here, and there's going to be a bunch of old people over here, and they could be happy. And I think that just need to be more answered questions. Why can't you use Old Chesterfield Road? Why is we dancing around that question?
And who votes on this, whether it passes or it don't? And after the trial period's over, who votes again? Is it the out-of-staters that love it? Or the old people that are gonna have the chickens run over because they run across the road? I mean, I own a four-wheeler. I'm on both sides of the fence. But one car going by compared to 30 ATVs, that's a different scenario of traffic and dust and noise. So I'm not complaining, I'm just asking questions that are not getting answered. We should have something written up. You know, I got a vague thing in the mail and it just said come to the meeting. Was no what's going to happen if it passes and what's going to happen if it don't. If it doesn't pass on our road, is it going to go to a next road? Or are you going to have a meeting where a bunch of other people are mad or they're for it? Or if it passes, what happens after that when we don't care for it? Is it tough for you or is it hooray for them? You know, there should be something written up after this meeting and sent to every resident on them streets to saying, if it passes, you know, we'll have a meeting after a trial period. And if it don't pass, why it didn't pass. It shouldn't be just let's slam the door on the case and move on to the next road to get a vote. It should be more in-depth questions and answers, not just the residents. And as far as economic growth in this state, yeah, up north, that's where they make their money. They make it during the snowmobile season, and now they figure they just continue with the four-wheel season. Here, with our grocery stores, whatever, one's owned by a big fuel company. Not like they're throwing any money back in this town, maybe just the taxes they pay. You know, it's and then when they move down there, is anybody going to walk 2 miles, a mile down and a mile back? Yeah, they're going to need water. They're going to need extra food. Other than that, just put it on your four-wheeler. And, you know, I just need more answers. You know, I'm not against it. I'm all for these people. I'm just know that it's going to be a different scenario when you get a bunch of other people there. They're out-of-staters. They're in calling the police. Are they going to come up with every call when there's somebody playing way up on the hill, that's 4 miles up on the hill, over a four-wheeler, when there's a car accident down on Richmond Road? When the police officer should be there, not up on the hill, tending to some dirt bike that was going 10 miles over the speed limit and ran over a chicken? You know, where you got somebody down the road down here dying because they hit a tree. You know, so you're going to have to add more cops. That's more money to the town. That's taken away from the revenue. That's added to the police station. That's another paycheck, another insurance, another. When you retire, you got to pay them down. So just got to think about that stuff. We need answers, not just. You know, I'm not carrying a shotgun and I'm not on their side or your side. I'm on my side, trying to figure out what the answers are. We need answers. I guess I stood on the soapbox long enough.
Well, I've heard a lot of people talk about these guys driving right by Winchester to go to Berlin. Why couldn't they just stop here? They would if we had a place to ride.
Well, I'm the oldest person who lives on Old Spofford Road, and I own 2 ATVs and enjoy them immensely. And I appreciate everything everybody said, but I'd like to cut to the facts. And the facts are, I don't know that it's going to bring any more money to the town, and it's not going to bring money to the town. It may be bringing money to the town businesses. And packing the meeting and saying all these wonderful things is great. You're still going to make the life of the people who live on the road not as good as it has been since the state park closed. I might add to that, I just heard tonight that the entry to the park on Old Chesterfield Road is closed. The entry to the park on Old Spofford Road is closed. So why are we discussing this? You can't get there from either side with an ATV as of now. The other thing is, in the material I submitted, unless I read it wrong, it's the worst road in Winchester. It's what it says in the town plan. There is no worse road. It is a very unsafe one-lane road. The town said it, not me. So how can you even consider this? And why bother listening to all the arguments about all the wonderful things? Of course ATV riding is wonderful. It's great. It's just where you do it and how you do it. And once you open it to all the terrible people who were there 15 years ago when you closed it, or when the state closed the entry. So I know you'll make up your minds at some point. By the way, when do we get to know your decision?
When do what?
When do we get to know your decision on this whole matter? Is it tonight or 2 weeks from tonight?
We haven't discussed that yet. Right now, the purpose of a public hearing on a matter like this is so that we can get the input from the public and from the residents. And in this case, we have the residents, we have the writers, because to try to make a decision on something like this without getting input from the public would just be wrong.
Oh, I understand that.
I mean,
you haven't answered the question. How long does
right.
it take?
I don't know. I can't tell you how long it's going to take.
Oh, okay.
I'm just hearing a lot of this information. We got your letter and one other letter that just came today. We just were handed a couple of different petitions tonight that we just saw. So, I can't make a decision on this myself right now because there's information I haven't even skimmed through while I was listening. So
This is the first time I've attended a town petitioning meeting, and I have no idea how long it takes. That's all.
right. Hold on one second, Dean. Tina was ahead of you.
Tina Perkins, 43 Michigan Street. I feel like we've heard both sides, and excuse my ignorance, but should this be a warrant article? Like, how do we get this to be a warrant article? Or why isn't it put forward to the town as a warrant article?
Right, there's an RSA, and I don't have it in front of me, Tina, but there's an RSA through the state that says that basically a club, in this case, could ask the Board of Selectmen of any given town, and through that process we have to have a public hearing. Now, that being said, there's nothing that's against the law for you to put a petition warrant article on the ballot next year. That's your right to do that, to stop it. But for their process, to ask permission for it.
Or to start one.
Or to start one, right.
If this process was to fail, there's nothing that says anybody couldn't put a petition warrant article on any year to allow or deny it anywhere.
But this is the proper way to do it when a club comes before the
Right.
through the RSA.
Right. The ATV club came to us about a month ago, said that this is what we'd like to do, and we told them in order for us to even discuss it, we need to hold a public hearing and notify the residents that would be directly affected, and that's what tonight's about.
Right. Can I ask another question? Maybe I missed it. How many vehicles do you think are going to come every weekend?
We see on a good weekend at the radio station, we might see 12 trucks and trailers, which might bring, riding throughout the park, maybe 50 vehicles. That doesn't mean they're all coming in town. So it's hard to answer that question.
Yeah.
We expect, when I ride my ATV, I go into a town, I'm in here, walk around, get something to drink, 15, 20 minutes, and back on the trail. We're not spending a lot of time, but we do go in and buy stuff and eat and drink. It's just a flow. It's a flow.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
And just to clarify something about the park. The park is not closed, right? There's a parking lot on Route 119 in Ashwillet that has trail access. The gate down there is a 10-foot wide gate with a 52-inch opening because the park is a 50-inch park. And at Old Chesterfield Road at the ranger station, the park is not closed up there. The gate is closed because
Down the road is the blowdown. And that gate is normally open because vehicles are allowed to drive to Fulham Pond to the boat landing and go fishing. That's the only reason that gate is opened up there. But there's a 12-foot gate up there plus a 52-inch opening for ATVs, and they're riding through there. So they park up there and they ride in there. The park is not closed. Just so that we're clear there. The John Hill side, which that state closed that parking area years and years and years ago. Mr. Gusman would know when it probably happened, but it's not open. It's never been open that I can ever remember. So.
I have a question with the safety. I live on a blind corner. I can't see a regular car coming. What are you going to do for the four-wheelers if this gets approved for their safety? Because I don't want someone going over the hood of my Jeep, and I don't want to accidentally hit somebody that I don't see over here coming. We have nothing but white corners by my house, and people are already on the wrong side of the road and speeding. I just feel like it's a disaster waiting to happen. I'm not saying I'm against it, I'm just more concerned about the safety. Because I feel like a lot of innocent people are going to end up getting wiped out on that blind corner, and it's a sharp corner. I mean, we look out, pulling out of our yard, we look up the hill, we don't see anybody coming, next thing you know, you pull out, you're almost getting clipped at the rear end. I mean, so if this is approved, I'm just curious what you are going to do for the safety of the riders. Because there are a lot of steep blind corners and on spot road. Thank you.
Yeah.
Again, there's speed limits, right? And the vehicle, these things, they're 50 inches wide. They're not a car. And I know my mom lived on that hill for years. I own property on Old Spofford Road myself, and I don't drive the speed limit. And I understand their concerns, but at the end of the day, we're going to police the speed. We're going to have a very strong presence in that area to make sure that all those things. And there's signs. The state gives us signs, blind corner, blind driveway ahead, all these things that we can post on the railroads in order to make the riders more aware of what's going on. Arrows, zigzags, corners, blind, this, that, everything we can do to help make the riders know what the obstacles are coming ahead.
I might not know, I'm asking a question. What's to stop them from coming where they currently have the parking lot down 119?
Just against the law.
Yeah, there's no way that you could. What?
That's all state.
Yeah, there's no way they could come. I mean, the snowmobiles cross it. There's no way that they could. I mean, we can't try and amend that. Like if they come off of where the old mill is and they could have that parking lot? If the sports club would buy that themselves?
Right, 119 all the way into Winchester?
No, just a parking lot for them where the old mill is. And that way they could easily access. What?
Across the road from the current parking lot, kind of?
Yeah.
Well, we don't own that land.
Yeah, but they could purchase it because he's trying to sell it.
Oh,
It was just an idea.
I've seen it, it's for sale, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was just an idea. No, it's for sale.
So they're talking about, people going on the wrong side of the road, going on Old Spofford Road, Old Chesterfield Road. Yet again, it goes back to common sense. Like I said, I took my daughter, did an online course with my daughter, and talked to a guy that used to instruct these courses. Common sense. Keep right. Ride right. It's like driving a car. Ride right. Ride on the right side of the road. They don't live in London, which I'm pretty sure they're driving in left. I mean, it's all common sense. I mean, yeah, you got people driving cars. Drive on the wrong side of the road. Come around corners broadside. I mean, it's going to happen. I mean, people on 119, 10, 32, 78, 68, 63, whatever, it doesn't matter. Ride right. If you're on the right side of the road, shouldn't have an issue.
So the RSA, Tina, that gives the select board or town councils the power to pass an ordinance or a bylaw is RSA 215A15. To this gentleman's point, and several people up here have mentioned common sense, so I'm here to tell you, not a lot of people have common sense. And that's for the ATV, I mean, that's not on either side. Our job is enforcement. We have right now a 7-person department, 56 or 57 miles of road in this town. That's not counting any trails. We do respond to every call. It might take us a while depending on where we are. We try to be as many places as we can. Winchester is a busy town. Your law enforcement department is a busy department. We're short-staffed right now. We will try and be on these roads if this passes as much as possible. But we then have to temper that with the person at 292 Richmond Road who complains about the trucks and the cars flying through the dip down here. We have to complain about the people flying over Manning Hill. We've got to be there. We've got to be down on South Parish Road. We can't be everywhere, so we will do our level best because that's our job, is to do our job and to enforce the laws. We will partner with the ATV Club if it passes and stop short of deputizing Dean because that'd be scary, but we will do our best. I'm not for this or against it. There are a lot of issues that will pop up. I will get phone calls on a Monday morning as a chief from somebody saying we called 3 times over the weekend and we never saw a police car. Well, we were there and the ATV's gone when we get there. There's nothing we can do. You know, that happens quite often. So we do our best. This is going to take there will be growing pains. I am not going to sit here and make Jack jump up out of his chair and say, yes, we're going to need another police officer. I don't know. But our call volume will increase. I do know that. But we will do our best.
Sorry, I just need to clarify. I didn't say the right question last time. Somebody asked an online question. I misunderstood what they said when I last spoke. His question is, if the mill was purchased, all the property over there would be a great place to develop and add shops and stores and restaurants, specifically for this kind of year-round tourist traffic. So that would be a good place for the ATV people to develop, I guess is what he's trying to say. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Is that it? Was that it from the public? Oh. No, I get it.
Bischoff, Old Spofford Road. I don't envy you guys. I really don't. You've got a lot of wonderful people that want to have fun. They want to build economy here. But we're telling you, on the Old Spofford Road, we've lived there for a long time. It's a dangerous road under the best circumstances. And I'm just going to say to you, think about your better angels here. How are you going to feel if someone gets maimed or killed, and it's just a matter of time? Okay, just think of that. Because we do all the time. We pull out of our driveways, and that's what we think. It's a dangerous road. Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public? No. So yeah, as I explained earlier, the purpose of the public hearing is so that we can hear from the public. And we have heard a lot of information tonight, both for and against it. Both sides had a lot of very good, strong, valid points. And I definitely agree with both sides, and I agree that maybe the plan in front of us isn't the perfect plan. That maybe it needs to be adjusted. Maybe something else, something different might need to happen. I like the idea. I do. I'm not against the idea myself one bit. I do feel like more planning needs to be done. before any motions can be made to do this and accept this. So my feeling is that we should recess the public hearing so that we can sort through some of this that we heard tonight and read some of this other paperwork that we received tonight, and maybe see if there is a better way of doing it.
Mr. Chairman, did I hear you correctly? You said recess?
Right.
Why not make a motion to close the public hearing? Is there any additional input you need other than administrative clarity?
Well, if we close the public hearing, then we can't discuss anything further.
Well, you could close the public hearing and then the board would then have an opportunity to make a decision.
Well, I'm not prepared to make a decision on this
Okay.
tonight. I need more than the last, even though we've been here 2 hours now. I've been listening to everybody. I need more than 2 hours to process some of this new information.
Okay, yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to think about how I do mine.
Sure.
Right, no, and I get it, I just I personally need more time
Sure.
to process the information.
Dean, one thing by keeping the public open, public portion of it, is, one, is it's 9 o'clock, so when we still have our regular meeting to get to.
I know.
We have 2 letters, one is 6-page, that should be read into the record. All right? We didn't get to that yet.
So you said, what was it, recess the public hearing? Is that what it is?
Right, by recessing, you have a copy of this.
I do, yeah.
And you address some of them, but you may want to address some more.
All right.
As we read it into the record.
Yeah. So we do that after the recess, is it a recess vote? Is that what it is, how that works?
No, we'd recess the public hearing until another date.
And then you go about doing your regular business.
Yeah.
Do
Right,
something,
right.
we'll come back.
And then this portion of our discussion for tonight would be over. That would give us time to review this stuff
So there'd be
until
no more input?
another date. No,
We
no.
would set another
there would
date,
be-
maybe next Wednesday or something?
I'm thinking two weeks, because next Wednesday we have a bunch of stuff already on the
I
schedule.
understand, okay, 2 more weeks. All right.
And actually, that will be the 22nd. That would actually work perfect because the senator's going to be here that evening.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand your process, that's all.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you got everything that you need from us.
Yes, yes.
That 4 or 5 pager, I think we've covered it all.
Yep, yep.
So, okay, I'm okay with that.
So that would be my recommendation, would be to recess the public hearing
To the 22nd?
till the 22nd. Jenny made that motion.
At what time?
7 o'clock on the 22nd, sorry.
We're going to have the senator in.
Yeah, but
Is he coming in at 6?
we didn't give him time to come into the meeting. Okay, thank you.
Well, let's call it, hold on.
Yeah. All those in favor of recessing? Guys, hey. All those in favor of recessing, say aye. Aye. That won't be long. Voting on this? Can we not vote with the people that were here on the ballot?
It's freaking hot in here.
No, but I'm saying amongst everybody, let everybody vote on the ballot.
I'm like, I can't hear anything. I'm right next to the speaker. I need water.
I do. I'm hearing you, girl.
Thank All right. I'd like to, oh, we're waiting for Gloria still? Okay. All right, I'd like to continue on with the rest of the Board of Selectmen meeting now. The next order of business, the first one really, is to accept the minutes from July 1st.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Next, we have an intent to excavate. There's no motion needed on this. It is for map 14, lot 1, and this would be Manning Hill. Yeah. Next, we have a couple of oath of offices. Oh, excuse me. Both for the Fair Library trustees. The first one is Christopher Boucher. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Boucher. And Jamie Lowery.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. Next, we have a tax levy in the amount of $538.36. This is for timber tax for map 4, lot 31. Is that the Bolton Road address?
Yes.
Yeah. The 299 Bolton Road. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. There's 2 pages to sign here. Next, we have some reminders. As has been stated a couple times, next week, the 22nd, Jay Kahn did confirm that he will be here that week. Next week, we have a work session scheduled for, that was for 6 o'clock, right? Yeah, 6 o'clock on the housing standards ordinance. And then on July 15th at 2 o'clock is the Richmond Road pre-construction meeting. Next thing we have in here that I had requested last week, we tabled this. Margaret, our health officer, had asked us a couple weeks ago to look into possibly using some of this COVID grant money to purchase some door buzzers and some laptops or such equipment. And I had asked last week for something a little bit more specific to look at. And Carrie did a good job with getting us quite a bit of information here. So one thing, and I'll explain it before I make my motion. We had discussed last week paying per Zoom, but we found out, talking with Worldwide Computer Solutions, that the format that we use currently for our computers and phones, we already have something on the same idea as Zoom that we can use that we already pay for. So I'm not going to include paying for Zoom in my motion because we already have something. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's already included in our contract we already have, so it don't make sense to pay for something else. But I am gonna make I'm gonna make a motion that we purchase, 3, one for the front door and one for the 2 side doors off the parking lot of the Ring is the brand name. The wireless doorbell systems that have the capability of speaking through them. So I would like to purchase 3 of those, and I would also like to purchase I'm going to do one motion for both things. And then we'd ask for some quotes on the computers or tablets of some sort, and Carrie has been discussing a lot of prices with other people. She's still waiting to hear from a couple people. So I would like to include in my motion that we allow Carrie to spend up to $400 a piece on buying, it looks like they're going to be Chromebooks or something equivalent. That's the end of my motion. 5, what we originally discussed. 5 of those, 3 of the Ring wireless things, doorbells.
I'll second that.
Now, then the reason I wanted two motions, because these rings, they were wireless, basically a throwaway piece of equipment. So there is no future service to them or anything. And they're easy to install. And we'll only need them if the town hall gets shut down again. We don't need them for everyday use, so they may not be installed for a while, hopefully. But I'm not in favor of buying a Chromebook, so if you're gonna put both of them together, then you're gonna, I'll be voting no on it. But if you separated them, I'm in favor of it.
We'll see where my first motion goes.
I'm in favor. That's the way I was gonna go as well, Ben.
Yeah, me too.
Well, motion's already been made and seconded, so I'll just call the vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No.
Motion fails 3-2. I will entertain a motion. I will make a motion to purchase 3 Ring doorbell wireless systems for the town hall.
Second.
Any other discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Now I will make a motion. I know where it's going, but I'm still going to do it. To purchase 5 Chromebooks or equivalent of up to $400 a piece.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
No. I was gonna recommend that I would go along with 2 or 3, but not 5, Ben, but,
Well,
so.
I agree that I do agree that 5 should be necessary because as it was, I mean, it was brought up at one point that other committees could use them 4 years from now. We can't promise 4 years from now. We can't promise that any of the 5 of us will be sitting here. Could be 5 totally different people that don't have computers, access to the internet. I just think it'd be I do believe it would be a good asset for the town.
Plus it doesn't cost us anything.
And right now it doesn't cost us anything. It's getting 5 free things.
One way or another, it's costing. You got service and the maintenance, nothing's for free.
Well, that motion failed 3-2. So, I'll try again next week.
That's Monday, going over there, expect that.
I didn't know if it was in the book.
No, it's not in here. We still have a few more things in here. This is in here just for our FYI, but I wanted to make sure to tell the rest of the board members that the 2 different copies of a draft social media policy is in here. I would like everybody to review it because I will be interested in making doing some sort of movement on this next week. So there are two different drafts of two different social media policies there. So please review those for next week. Yeah, those are ones before that Carrie worked on one and
Those are the ones that were written up a while ago, but we haven't.
right. Right.
Do you have extra copies of those? Would you please, so I can take it home and read it? Thank you.
Was it in your email? Can that copy be made available to the public?
I can't hear you.
Can that be made available to the public?
I mean, right now it's just a draft, so it's still a public document. I mean, it's not a non-public issue, so.
Where could we find it?
You would have to request one from Carrie.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Carrie.
Sorry, it's just really hard to hear behind me, so I'm trying to talk into the mic and turn around at the same time. Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so in our financial folder, we have, the first thing is Amy put in a request to create a new bank account, a savings, I believe it's a savings account, in with our current accounts we already have, just as a place to accept donations to the cemetery, because we've been receiving some donations for the cemetery, and we don't have a specific bank account for that. Right. So I will entertain a motion to open this.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. And currently if anybody's wondering, currently there's $1,230 of donations that have been given. And we have a request from Amy on the line adjustments. This is the adjustments for payroll for the first of the year. And these are all from the already scheduled, well, not scheduled, we had to make them, but the merit and yeah, cost of living raises. I couldn't remember the name of that.
Make motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 4-1. And I'll explain briefly the reason that we'd have to do the line adjustments is because last year during the budget meetings it was asked that the money that was being budgeted specifically for raises put into a single line item by themselves so that it could be seen. And now that line item has to be broken out into all the different employees' lines, so that's the reason for that. Next, we have the paperwork to pay back the TAN. The total interest on the TAN, it was $1 million TAN, and yeah, it's $1,499.99.
Second. I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. Next, we have the 941 forms for the IRS. This is the federal tax return forms that we have to fill out. And let me read this real quick. This is just keeping Ricky on as the signer for this. No, there's no amount, it's just the 941 and 941 Schedule B. That's all it says. There's a total liability for the quarter that I see
That's the
here.
payroll taxes, the 941.
Right, that's the quarterly payroll taxes, right, and Ricky's the signer for it. But the total liability for the quarter here is $79,756. Let me do that again. $79,700.56.
I make a motion to approve that.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. It's only got room for my signature for approving. Next is a request for payment from the Water Tank Grant Fund for $300 to Tata and Howard. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None, motion carries. And the last thing in here, we tabled it last week. I know James did some research on this, but Dale's wheels for the loader. And Dale, Dale didn't have any other information, any new information.
Okay, do you wanna wait until he's back next week, or I can give you what I've got?
Well, James had some conversation, and I'll have to speak of the price of it. The reason we tabled it last week, because Dale had priced for 3 new wheels.
Yeah.
Okay. And I said that, listen, there's a possibility that we're gonna be getting rid of it in the spring, when we approve the warrant article. So I didn't wanna spend that amount of money on new, see what we could find for you. And James looked all week and found some used ones, but Texas,
Yeah, Texas,
New York, and weren't guaranteeing the condition. But
And they're pretty close to the same price as the new.
Well, yeah, $2,800, without, the two from New York, $850 a piece, $225 shipping, and those don't include, there's 2 rings on each wheel, and an O-ring. Those are not included in that price. And the condition of these wheels is, don't know until you get them, so. The one in Texas is $857, for whatever reason, $7 more. They're waiting on a freight quote and the same thing, don't know the condition, and, it also needs the 2 rings and the O-ring. So,
But the reason I'd like to have Dale here is because James had a good point, talking with Dale, that we may be able to purchase 1 new wheel and a used tire and just use it for a spare.
yeah, he said if we,
Continue using what we have, and when, and if we have a problem with some of the others, all we have to do is change it out.
if he had a spare wheel and tire and this happened again, he can at least change it and get it mobile until he can have the, what now would become the spare once it's repaired.
So we had one that wouldn't hold air.
Yeah, well, remember the wheel spun inside the tire, ripped the
Right.
valves down, the tire. And that's, the 3 wheels, 3 out of the 4 wheels are in that condition. So it's only a matter of time, he feels it's gonna continue to happen.
No, James got some prices on, but I just want to hear from Dale that that plan's okay with it.
Yeah,
Find
I
the
mean,
one,
we just have to find a used tire, that's all.
and Pete can do that. Matter of fact, we
Yeah,
should've kept the one
Pete's
that we
probably
got.
has a, might
How
even
much
have
do
one.
those used tires usually go for, though?
Well, a new one's 1,500, so depending on the condition, I mean, I would hope.
What do we get, $250 for all four?
Yeah.
They were back.
Yeah, so. Yeah, because you're gonna be, you know, his new wheel, if you buy one of those new wheels, you're over 1,200. And if you're gonna pay, you know, $750 for a tire, now you're, you know, $1,950 and you're getting close to the 3 new wheels and the problem's gone. So it's.
So if you buy the one for how much?
One wheel and a used tire?
Yeah, we don't know the price of the tire, but the wheel.
Well, the thing with the
Without the
used
rim.
wheel is to buy it.
No,
could be-
new wheel.
Oh, well, it was $3,700 for 3 of them, so $1,230.
Okay, $1,230. So.
For a used
we
tire.
Probably have another $300, I'm guessing, in a tire, so it's $1,500. I'm guessing.
Yeah. But again,
Yes, it is. Yeah, and you have a spare in case it happens.
well, let me do some research first, because, I mean, find a decent used tire before we, you know.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're still buying the one wheel and a decent used tire.
We're gonna be
We're-
$2,000, I think.
we're-
A decent tire and the mount, you know, obviously, it's probably $300 to mount this thing. They got pizzas gotta
Right,
come up.
they gotta mount it and everything, but we're gonna be right around the halfway point, if not higher than the halfway point of buying the 3 new wheels and just being done with it and not having to worry about it.
Yes.
So we got,
Why don't you call Pete and find out?
Yeah, I will.
They'll give you the price of the tire.
Yeah, and I found no used wheels and tires that were,
right,
you know,
a full,
yeah.
yeah. So that'll be tabled. And that's all I have in the folder.
Channing, are you doing this inspection
Yes, Monday.
Monday, you're doing a junkyard
Yeah.
inspection.
by yourself?
Margaret probably go with me, she usually does.
That's on Hildreth Street.
Yep.
I don't have anything else. Does anybody else from the board have anything?
I just wanted to send a thank you out to Lenny and Bruce Lawrence and Leonard W. Lawrence on the, you know, the generous donation of removing those stumps and hauling them out of there out of Muskefield Park.
Yeah, no, they did a good job. Looks real nice out there.
Thank you.
The rec committee met tonight, and it looks like we're gonna cancel the bridge thing.
You gonna cancel it?
It looks that way right now, so I lost my connection on the Zoom meeting tonight, but I'll confirm that next week.
How about, music in the park, is that from?
So as long as the weather holds up tomorrow night, we should be having a concert, as long as the band doesn't cancel, we'll have a concert tomorrow night. So it's very, very shortened season. What's that?
What's the band?
I want to say Dragonfly. I forget. I'm not sure. It's on Facebook. I forget. I really pay attention. But there is a concert tomorrow night. As long as everything goes according to plan.
Don't rain.
Yeah. Don't rain and the band don't cancel again. We hope to have a couple of concerts this summer, if nothing else.
Steel Rail is the band.
Steel Rail. Okay.
Carrie, did you have anything else? Yep.
Moving all of the equipment up there, so, ask for all the back, the way that we have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still planning.
Right.
We also received information from the state Homeland Security that all PPE will be provided for all the elections for September and November. So they've got a whole list of stuff that they'll be sending to us for all the towns across the state to be using for protection, so.
Awesome.
The next step is up to the school, Carrie?
Say what?
The next step is up to the school after that meeting? Before we'll know whether we can use the school or not?
Yeah, the school's gonna verify that they, if we need to have a school that day, so they can verify their, the school board, make sure everybody's on the same page.
Okay.
I won't know for another week or so.
Okay. Nothing else from the board? At this time, I'll open it to the floor. Does anybody from the public have anything?
Mine are online questions from people. Somebody wanted to know, Jack, why you oppose computers? Getting computers for free? Somebody online wanted to know why you, or anybody else that voted no, opposes getting those computers.
Well, one is I don't think you're very productive, and I tell you why. Because we need someone to sit beside Carrie, asking questions like you do right now, which we don't have anyone to do that. Two is, when you're talking to someone face to face here, you get to the point quickly. You get the answer quickly. You get their emotions. You don't over that phone. So I want to talk to people in person.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Another question was, somebody recommended not getting Chromebooks. If a question was about servicing the computers, a Chromebook is basically just like a tablet, because it's just a web browser, that it would cost a little more, but you guys could get iPads, and then they don't have to get serviced because they don't get viruses. And you can also, one of the local tech businessmen in town said he would service them for free for you guys. Yeah, okay. Right, yeah, no, it's a learning curve, it is, yeah, 100%.
All our other computer equipment, everything that we already have in service is all non-Apple, all Windows. All Windows.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, there are better things than Chromebooks, like, they're not the best, honestly. Yeah, yeah.
That's why I said we're equivalent. Right now,
Yeah.
the biggest problem we're finding, and Terry has even reached out to the state source that the school used to get on theirs.
Yep.
But because of all the remote learning that went on, almost everybody's sold out of everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's why
Yeah,
we have
no.
the motion as or
Yeah.
equivalent. Unfortunately, that failed.
Yep. I think somebody else, I think that might be it. I did have a question about the recording equipment. I did submit those prices to you guys. It's now been quite a few weeks.
So I did a little bit more research on that, and I went out and I emailed the COVID Gopher grant, and I don't think it's going to cover it. It will cover telecommunications, like computers, software, internet, but it's not going to, it won't cover recording.
Okay. The other question I have is that the recording, the online meeting platform that the town has, is that able to be recorded through that platform? It is? Cool. All right, yeah, that's all I got. Thank you.
It is able to be recorded, and it is able to have full, just like Zoom, have full public usage too. That the
Cool.
public can get out on.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know.
It's
Yeah.
basically the same thing as Zoom. It's just, I'm sure they have something that's a little different.
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different platforms out there. Some of them you could record on, some of them you can't. Yeah. Okay.
You were starting to stand up when Nat standed up. So. Okay. Okay. All right.
Keep it that way.
Oh, I just have one more question. When does the COVID grant, when's the deadline up for that?
That was September, wasn't it?
Well, it's here, so if they spend
Somebody just had a question, one more question. They're wondering if we could carry a microphone. Because they can't. Yeah. No, yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah, next week we'll. Oh, yeah. As we announced last week, we did have a budget committee meeting last night. It ended up with 3-2 vote on both to have Chester remain the president or the chairman, and Tiffany the vice chair. There was some questions to the school on adding a percentage line to the end of their budget, which Lindsay said would be able to happen. We discussed the possibility of meeting more often, and originally we were talking about having our next meeting in August, but then we decided to hold off on that until everybody was a little bit further, both town and school were a little bit further into their current budgets. But it was, I had made mention of it a few times that I would definitely recommend the budget committee members be present at as many, both town and school, both the select board and the school board's budget meetings when they first start their budget processes. That way they can hear some of the information as it's originally being discussed and maybe get a little bit more of a backstory on things so that it's easier to make decisions and not have to ask the same questions that have already been asked 30 or 40 times. That's pretty much all we really did in the meeting, isn't it?
The budget committee asked to review the town and school board budgets on a regular basis.
Yep.
To the extent.
Right. Right. They had asked for a monthly update. I let them know that the towns, as we have stated before, was available weekly. And so the budget committee will be reviewing town and school, the current budget on at least a monthly basis, just so that they can stay familiar with how the budget's going throughout the year. And hopefully that'll help for next year's budgeting process to know better where some shortfalls or high points might be. Is that everything? Okay. Okay.
After the meeting, I guess somebody asked you about when the books close for the town. And so I just wanted some clarification. When does the town audit occur for year end?
That I'm not 100% sure.
October.
Right.
So your books aren't closed until your audit completes and closes your books?
Correct.
Which could be as long as November, once they finish. Thank you.
Is the school the same way, Lindsay?
The school is the same way, yeah. Fiscal year end is the 30th, but as the town knows and the school knows, there are occasionally invoices that are received after that, especially tuition after the 30th. And our audit is scheduled, and our auditor will start coming in September. But the member of the public seemed to think that the town books were going to be ready to go in a couple of weeks, and that just sounded a little early for me. It sounded, as I recall, the town and the school typically, in a good year, right, would like our books done by about November, so we have some true numbers coming into the rest of budget season.
Thank you.
Is everything from the public? All right. I'm drawing a blank. Did we don't even have any non-public this week, do we? Okay. Yeah, but his isn't necessarily a public thing. I told him he's non-public, but I'm drawing a blank on what else was in here for non-public. I'm thinking it was C and E, but I can't remember for sure.
Definitely E and C,
Right.
and an A.
Okay. I will entertain a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32, little A, E, and C.
Second.
Roll call, James Rokes. Herb Stevens. Jack Marsh. Gloria Lustad. Ben Kalansky, aye. We are now in non-public, and I do not foresee us having any other business.